So I talked about those two things, right? And I shared exactly what happened, as much detail as I could in 5 minutes. I wanted people to take away the fact that present value versus future value is rarely considered when we're making financial decisions, and frankly, most decisions. It's the extended remix. So, of course, it's my turn now, and I'm going to actually go straight to the career options part 2. Number 1, 9 times out of 10, if I get the opportunity to roll something back or correlate it to how we manage and how we steward our own personal finances, I'm going to take that opportunity. It just comes from pretty much I've been this way my whole life. If there's a way to problem solve and or help money make money, I've always been interested in it. And so in this particular episode, I decided to be extremely transparent. And I even mentioned, I believe, in the actual episode that I'm a pretty private person. And if I didn't, you're getting to hear it here right now. I'm a pretty private person, generally speaking. Even with my most immediate circle, I'm extremely private. But with this episode, I felt like it was extremely important to share a very, very personal experience. And so when I talked about those two major financial decisions that I made, one being selling the stock, right, to purchase a car cash. And then I also talked about the first home I ever purchased. So I talked about those two things, right? And I shared exactly what happened, as much detail as I could in 5 minutes. I wanted people to take away the fact that present value versus future value is rarely considered when we're making financial decisions. And frankly, most decisions. Most decisions, we don't consider the present value versus the future value. We're in the moment, maybe a week out, maybe a 2 weeks out, but we're not thinking 5-10 years from now. And while we might not be promised 5-10 years from now, it can absolutely get here. And when it gets here, you might be facing the situation that I'm currently in. So whenever you make a financial decision, you have to consider the future value of the assets as well as depreciation if it has that element to it. This can put pressure, and I mentioned the external pressures. This can put pressure on the decisions that you're making in your career. It can put pressure on you to stay at a job or to leave a job, to get caught up in what other people are doing and making decisions based upon what they're doing, their authenticity, right? You can get caught up and make a decision based upon the house you're in if it's not big enough, right? If your peer has 5 bedrooms, making more money, right? 2.5 kids and a dog and a cat. I might need to go get a dog and a cat, right? But those financial decisions put external pressure on the jobs you take. It also puts external pressure on the crap that you might be willing to put up with.
Wow.
Right? Just because you made a financial decision, and you may not realize it in the moment, but you know how much money roughly you need to be making to pay for all of these things, this stuff, this space that you've gotten to. And so thinking about the future value is, one, what's the future value of the assets, but also my future. What do I want that to look like? Because 10 years even from this point in time, may want other things, but the decisions that I make right now will determine whether or not I have those things. And they could be things, assets, or it could just simply be my peace and freedom that's on the line. Right? So that's the takeaway that I wanted people to have from that particular episode. And the thing that that I think about as well a lot of times, and again, this goes back to, I think I mentioned it in our last extended remix, is the amount of study that I've done around our minds, how we work, how we respond to certain things, and this term called relative bias that can set in. And it happens all the time. So if you drive a red Honda Accord, you're probably gonna, every day you get on the road, if you drive more than 5 minutes, you're gonna see 2 or 3. Because now your brain can now visualize and see these things and grab them because you have one. If you watch a certain television show and it has certain theme music, you're going to hear that theme music, or the artist that sings that theme music. Every time you're listening to the radio, that song is going to stick out. So if you listen to the hacks that are provided in Career Options 1, which you'll have to go back and check that one out, and 2, you'll begin to see different opportunities and paths that take that take you more directly into the things that you want day to day. Just because you listen to that episode, you'll now be thinking about my experience, right? Being the car that I have now sitting in my garage right now, that's not worth $175,000, right? But that's how much that stock would have been worth today if I hadn't sold it. You won't ever be able to forget that. So if you go to the car lot now, that'll be in the back of your mind. What's going to be the future value of this car and or the money that I'm going to spend on this over the lifetime? You won't be able to you'll never be able to think about it differently just because you took the time to expose yourself to our podcast. And then two, be in the house, right? Again, bought both of them at a discount. So I thought was a great deal. But had I just hung on to the house and anticipated the future value, even not at the rate that it's grown, but even half the rate, it'd be worth over $300,000. The mortgage would be completely paid off, and I'd be receiving rental income. And I said 15,000, but it would have been more than that a year, just based upon the rental rates. You won't ever be able to forget that just because you watched that episode, just because you're listening to the extended remix right now. So when you go to buy a house, you go to buy a car, you'll be thinking about those things and what the future value of them will be forever. And that's the power of what you expose yourself to in general. That's the power of what you expose yourself to in general. So that was my big takeaway, as well as the thing that I wish I could have kind of like wrapped the episode up with for people to take away and move forward. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
A couple things kind of came to my mind when I listened to this episode, and just hearing you talk about that present value and future value, and it really kind of pushed me into like what causes us to make decisions. And a lot of times we find ourselves making decisions only considering that present value is because we don't have a healthy relationship with our emotions. And I know that sounds weird, but our emotions in the moment will cause us to make a decision without thinking big picture.
Right.
And so when we really understand, like when especially when we're making financial decisions, we really understand how we feel, what our relationship with money looks like, how we feel, then we can start to take a partner and say, hey, I need to consult with somebody else to help me think about this differently, or I need to look beyond just this present moment or just this current decision and really understand how I feel so I can make a decision that's going to benefit me in the future. Because when you hit that thing down the line and you realize, to your point in the podcast, that you made a decision and now it impacted your bag down the line, then that's when you got to deal with those emotions that like those real hard and painful emotions that takes a little longer to sort through. And so that's what came to my mind, is just it's so important to have a healthy relationship with your emotions, to really understand what your relationship with money looks like, and then also making sure that you take a partner when you're having to make big decisions and not feeling like you got to have this, your ego in the way, this God complex to figure it out by yourself. You got to take a partner so you can consider things. Because I wouldn't have known, right, about even some of my decisions if I hadn't taken a partner with you, Jamila, on some decisions that I made, right? I took a partner, and now it made me start to think differently. It made me start to research differently. It helped me get more, in touch with my emotions about how I was feeling with certain things so I could make better and more wise decisions down the line. So again, phenomenal episode. And I know Alicia about to drop a major bomb, gem,
Y'all get
fire
ready.
chat. I can feel the dang on fire
Put the
emoji
seatbelt
coming
on.
towards me right now. I
Get
know
the
it's on the way.
emojis ready. Get them ready. Get them ready. No, no. The first thing that came to mind, first off, obviously great episode. I think what was phenomenal about it is I don't think a lot of times people think about the things you brought up, right? The car, the house, and how that relates to their career, right? Because there's somebody in their current situation, even maybe even a relationship, right? You're staying in a job because of your responsibilities to take care of your spouse, your children, your parents, or extended family, right? You have a lot of pressure on yourself. So I thought that was phenomenal because even people, as you were talking about, taking on other assignments in different states, there's so many people that don't want to leave. They don't want to go live anywhere else, but they're told that they have to grow their career this way, right? And then they're caught up in these different situations. So I thought that was great. So for the listeners, if this is somewhere that you are, or maybe you're being urged in your company, or you're thinking about it, these are some great points to consider. And it may be for you or it may not. So I thought that was like off top, really good to connect that to a career. Um, I think this is kind of like in this being the extended and like an insight on our conversations as a group. I think we won't name the company, but we have shared and been open around us working at a company together. And you know what it took me to? And Candace, you're going to remember this meeting because you were there. Jamila, I can't remember if you were at this meeting, but we definitely have talked about it. And we were actually at a corporate meeting, and this person was pretty high, right, in the C-suite, or at least were taking data from the C-suite, and they created a slide, and they were relating it to the company results, and they had talked about everybody's vehicle, and they were stacking. Candace, do you remember this?
Oh, I remember this.
Right? And they were stacking, so like we lost all these millions, and they were going through people's bonuses and people's cars. Now, mind you, no one in the audience at our level had these cars, right? Like we couldn't afford, like you're talking about $150,000
Except that
car,
minivan. Except that minivan, Alicia.
which was at the end of the line. Remember that? And we all looking around like, that gift, like, right? That gift, okay? So we're sitting there, and that's what it was making me think about, right? Is that
Mhm.
somebody's making a decision. And I'll make it personal, right? Like I have been in rooms where people are talking about things way above what I had experienced growing up, right?
Right.
I didn't go on these elaborate vacations as a kid. So they're talking as if it's so normal to go skiing or so normal to do this. And then you're just sitting there, right? And you're making decisions to get there. And that was the design of that conversation. Would you agree, Candace?
Oh, you're 100% correct.
It was to aspire to do this, right? It was,
Yep.
we have this AA, we got, and it was like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Every car that was on there was between 100 and 200,000 minimum,
Mhm.
that they were stacking up to get to these millions and interchanging it with the people's face. And that is forever stained in my mind, is that for them, it was supposed to be motivating, but it was extremely tone deaf, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it made me think about in your episode of like somebody is getting in a financial entanglement, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
Candace, to your point, an emotional one, right? And it brought me to even like, Candace and Jamila were able to present at my family reunion and talking about your relationship with money, particularly for Black people, right? And for women, this is so much that can just be unpacked here on how people get into differences. So all of that is what I was thinking about. I went to that. That was like some workplace trauma, right? That meeting,
Absolutely.
that meeting.
Hey, did you set some lofty goals for yourself this year? I mean, really big goals? Well, guess what? You're not alone. Let me tell you what the top 3 areas most of our clients come to us for: promotions, how to get more money, and how do I make a career change. And guess what the commonality is between all 3 asks? How do I do it fast? Don't give up. Keep dreaming big and let the 5 Minute Career Hack team help you get there with the In Transit Workshop. Check out the link and you can sign up today.
When you were saying that, I was sitting here thinking to myself, like, I wasn't at that meeting, but that's the hook, right? That's the hook that keeps you working, that keeps you doing, that keeps you pushing, that is supposed to drive you to hit your bonus so you can drive results for the company, but ultimately probably further indebt you. Because now if I go try to get this $100,000-$200,000 car or whatever that looks like, I don't have an exit strategy to make a career shift. I don't have an exit strategy to make a career shift because number one, my pay grade, again, like you mentioned, with everybody that they put up there, you at that point in time weren't in that pay grade. So you're overreaching at that point. And it's symbolic too, because that's exactly what we do when we're looking to the left and to the right at what our peers may have or what our neighbors may have. And we make these decisions based upon what we're feeling, like Candace said, the emotions of what we're feeling right now. And then fast forward, when we do need to make a move, we're feeling stagnant in our career, or we want to try something different, or we want to look to get promoted, we're afraid to leave.
Mhm.
We think we can't leave. I've got to stay here. I've got a good situation so that I can take care of this car payment or whatever that might be, whatever that external pressure might be. That was a hook.
Mm.
That was a hook at that meeting. That's, man, we got to break that one down one day. And I know you have I could feel a follow up thought, Candace.
Oh,
No, I was just saying that what it just took me back to that word permission. Just when I heard what you just said, it's like we're waiting for permission to leave, but that was that permission to stay and try to get where I'm at by showing me all these cars. And the minivan had like little to no effect. Only us know. Maybe we call it the minivan effect. Like, that minivan and that they had little to no effect on us because we saw so much that was being penetrated in our minds behind those high value dollar cars. That was that permission to, hey, here's your permission to stay so you can get right to this position or status right here. I hadn't even thought, like, I've thought about that a lot of times, Alicia, but the way you just talked about it today, it just boiled up something new in my spirit. Yeah, that's a podcast episode.
Done.
Yeah,
Now,
that's that. That's
now
that on
we
that.
have to decide like who's gonna do it, or we one person do part one,
Hey,
one person.
yeah, we want part 1, part 2. I feel a part 1, part 2 coming on.
But I think it goes back in transition, right? So for those that haven't watched that, we have given that in our community and talked about it. And I would say there's probably something coming up for somebody watching this. And I would tell you to drop that, in the chat right now. Definitely reach out to us because you probably thought, similar how we thought, that this was just me. Like I was the only person feeling this way, right? And we wonder how we get to imposter syndrome, right? We wonder how people feel like they don't get in because I got this job and I don't have a Panamera, right? Like I'm never gonna have a Ferrari, right? Like, and I gotta do, and I don't feel like I fit in because I don't have, to your point, that house. Like I'm really not the person for this job. So yeah, if that's you, definitely let us know. But thank you so much, Jamila, for your experience and, to your point, sharing something that you felt was very vulnerable, right, and very personal.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So this has been an amazing extended remix of the 5-Minute Career Hack podcast. And we're going to wrap it up. But before we do, we're going to get the final 5 words from everyone. So who wants to go first? I'm not even going to pick this time. Who wants to go first? Because if you don't have your notepad, these final 5 words are going to change your life. I promise you. So go ahead. Whoever wants to go.
Go ahead, Alicia. Go ahead.
I would say my 5 words are: self-assessment is a gift.
That's a bar.
That's it. And I feel like all of this in career, like this career shift, I would call it module, right, that we have done with all these episodes. That's what, I mean, not only my episode, but that's what I would say speaks to me. Those are my 5 words.
I was about to tweet what Alicia said, but I said that's a whole ebook title right there. Go ahead, Jamila. I'll go last.
All right. So my final 5 words are change. Change. He has more for you.
Oh, wow. That's good too. And I'm always going to have an affirmation for my final 5 words. And it is, I compare myself to myself. Just another interrupter thought for you all. I compare myself to myself.
Ooh, those are good. And I'm going to write those down as soon as we wrap this up. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Give us a review as well if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon. And we need to hear more from you. We've got series that are coming out. Some of the episodes have been recorded, some not. But if there's something specific you need us to talk to you about, or we need to talk directly to you about, let us know. We're always open for new topics that maybe haven't been explored on our podcast. And as I always end it, I love you all. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
Love y'all. Be well.
What's up, hackers? We firmly believe here at the 5-Minute Career Hack in no fluff and all action. We like to get straight to the point with our career coaching and not waste your time. We give it to you in bite-sized chunks so you can get the results that you're looking for and you can move yourself closer to your goal. Wouldn't you like more of that today? Well, I got you. Click the link below and subscribe to our Under 5 Minutes newsletter. Think better, get better, be better with a newsletter that reads under 5 minutes and you get it each and every week. Subscribe right now by clicking the link below and make sure you share this with someone you love.